Have you ever felt like that ministry is pulling you and your husband apart instead of bringing you closer together? This topic is very important to me, and it is because I am a first lady. My husband and I, we have been in ministry for over 30 years now, and there have been seasons in my marriage that I felt that the ministry was causing a wedge in my marriage instead of making it stronger. It is very common for ministry marriages to struggle with balance, trying to find the time to run a ministry and also be attentive in your marriage. In the Bible, Paul talks about how that a single woman's desire is to please God, and how that the married woman desire should be to please her husband. And what I have watched after being around ministry all of my life, being that my mom, she was a pastor. A lot of ministry married couples, they only pay attention to their relationship with God, doing God's work, but they neglect their marriage responsibilities. If you feel like you are in a season to where you are struggling in your marriage and you want to make it stronger, today I will share some key ways to strengthen your marriage while still serving effectively in ministry. First, I want to discuss some common struggles that ministry marriages face. Ministry becoming a priority over your marriage. That's very common. And it is because when you are working for God, one of the main things that you are going to do is help people. And it does feel good once you start helping people. A lot of times, once you get home, you're tired and you're exhausted and you just want to relax. So you don't have much time for your wife or for your husband. As I mentioned earlier, that's why it is so important to find balance. The same way you want to care and to nurture other people, pray for them, give them sound advice, because you want them to grow in God. You don't want them to fail. You should be the same way about your marriage. Certain things you have to do to have a strong marriage. A strong marriage don't happen by fate. There are things that you have to do to make it better. Another issue that a lot of ministry marriages face is feeling like co-workers instead of husband and wife. Just a couple months ago, my husband made me the co-pastor at our church. And I notice now I'm a lot more involved, and we have a lot more conversations at home about the church and different things that we can do to make it better, or different issues. But even though I am a co-pastor and I have grown children, I still want to make sure that my marriage isn't suffering, because I want to have a good marriage. So I know that for us to have a good marriage, we're going to have to spend time together and just talk about each other's desires. Don't always talk about the church or a project that we want to do at the church. Another issue that a lot of ministry marriages have is a lack of quality time due to church responsibilities. My husband, he started pastoring maybe 8 months after we got married. And for the first couple of years of our marriage, I went through a season of being lonely. And I was feeling lonely because my husband was away from home a lot. We seldom took out time to go on a vacation or to do anything outside of church. And that's not good for our marriage. And yes, I know that God's work is important, but God also wants us to have good relationships. He wants us to live a balanced life. And sometimes when you are new in ministry, you're so excited until you forget about your personal relationships. Another thing that a lot of ministry marriage goes through is emotional and spiritual exhaustion, which can affect the intimacy and connection. There are key ways that you can strengthen your marriage. Prioritize date nights and time alone. You should be intentional about scheduling uninterrupted time alone. If you watch any of my other videos, it's something that I mention often. And one thing is when you and your husband is spending time together, you should always encourage your husband to put his phone on do not disturb. That way you can have his attention. Because I don't know about you guys, but sometimes I want my husband undivided attention. I don't want to talk about our kids, the church, just us. And I think it's okay as a wife to be selfish sometimes. If you have young kids, get a babysitter and prepare a special dinner for your husband. If you can't cook, you can order something to go from a restaurant. Choose items that you know that he loves. Dim the lights, light some candles, and make it special for him. He will appreciate it. Set boundaries. It's good to have boundaries with church members, and sometimes you don't have to just say anything. One thing that I have been doing for years is every night at 8 o'clock, my phone goes on do not disturb. And I have it set on my phone like that because that's time that I'm going to spend with my husband. And I don't want to be disturbed. So if someone need me, they're going to have to call or text me before 8 o'clock p.m. And one thing that I do want you to remember is that you are a wife and not just a first lady. So you want to make sure that you are doing your wifely duties. And make sure that you don't overschedule yourself. If you feel like that you are involved with too many things, it's okay to say no. Every so often, you should pray for your marriage. Pray for your spouse. Ask God to strengthen your marriage and to give you wisdom of how to be a better wife. And you don't want to be the wife that always finds fault in her husband and never try to improve herself. No one is perfect, and it's always good to work on yourself. It's important to communicate openly and often with your spouse. Talk about struggles that you may be facing, not just church business. Talk about your desires. I think often you should ask your husband, what can I do to please you? And hopefully he will ask you the same thing, because you should both want to please each other. You should check in with each other emotionally. Because one thing I notice about when you work in ministry, most of the time you have a habit of checking in on others, making sure that they are okay, but we forget to check in on each other. One thing that I have learned about being a wife in ministry is that I am my husband's keeper. My job is to protect him, to encourage him, to make sure that he is well. One other thing that I do want to talk about that I have noticed a lot of marriage and ministry is lacking, and that is intimacy. It's important to be intimate with your spouse, and you should be intimate with your spouse often. What's good about coming together as a husband and wife is that it draws you closer. It helps with stress. It bonds you together. And it even helps you to get along with each other. So you should make intimacy a priority in your marriage, not just another to do. When you are connected in this area, it brings peace and unity in your marriage. A strong marriage leads to a strong ministry. Don't let the church come before your relationship. And I encourage you to take at least one of these steps that I mentioned and apply it to your life this week. What's one thing that you do to keep your marriage strong in ministry? And maybe it can help someone else and me as well. One of my goals this year is to grow my YouTube channel. If you want to help me, please subscribe to my channel if you haven't subscribed. Like this video and share it with a friend or on your social media page. If you want to learn more about how to be a good Christian wife, stay tuned in for my next video about 5 things I stopped doing to become a better Christian wife. May God bless you. Bye.